cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession. A night out ends in a 2 a.m. explosive fight, a police arrest, and a lit fire pit. Welcome to Starscope Report.
Yes, welcome in, everyone. Join us as we uncover, Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals.
Exactly. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame. And the mission for today's deep dive, well, it is the headline story that is basically consuming every feed right now. Tom Sandoval's legal battle is escalating.
Escalating is like an understatement at this point. I mean, it is everywhere.
It really is. So we are breaking down the timeline of what might honestly be the ultimate reality TV breakup turned into just an absolute legal disaster.
Yeah, and we're going to separate, the viral videos and the chaotic social media noise from the actual sworn court filings.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of noise.
So much noise. We have pulled from TMZ, Us Weekly, Extra TV, and the Express Tribune. But to truly grasp the stakes, for you all listening, we are cross-referencing all of this celebrity gossip with the official California Court's Guide to Domestic Violence Restraining Orders.
Right, because to understand the drama, you really have to understand the law governing it. And, I mean, it is wild how quickly a situation can escalate from a typical, albeit messy, celebrity breakup into an absolute legal nightmare.
Definitely.
To understand the explosion that happened that night, we really have to rewind the timeline a bit for you. So Tom Sandoval and Victoria Lee Robinson, they started dating in early 2024.
Right.
Fast forward to May and June of 2026, and the relationship is ending. But if you look at Tom's legal filings, this wasn't just a simple case of growing apart. The documents allege a massive buildup of what the courts actually call coercive control.
Yeah, and coercive control is a huge and actually relatively recent focus of the California Family Code. It is legally defined as a pattern of behavior that unreasonably interferes with a person's free will.
Like the slow tightening of the screws.
Exactly. That is the perfect way to describe it. Tom's documents allege some incredibly intense incidents leading up to the final blowout. He claims Victoria threw a full Gatorade bottle at him, tracked his car using an Apple AirTag, and was even, logging into his social media to delete his Instagram stories.
I mean, the sheer level of digital surveillance and manipulation alleged there is just staggering. But the detail that legitimately left me in utter shock, like the one that sounds like it belongs in a sci-fi thriller, was the iPhone Face ID incident.
Oh, wow. Yeah, break that down.
Okay, so just imagine the paranoia in that house. Tom suspects Victoria is tampering with his phone settings. He confronts her. She flat out denies it. So, to prove she is lying, he takes his locked phone and literally shoves it directly in front of her face.
Right.
And because she knows it is going to unlock and expose her, she is literally trying to contort and distort her facial features. She is squeezing her eyes shut, trying to, trick the facial recognition software. But the phone unlocks anyway.
That is just wow.
It is this bizarre dystopian reality TV moment. The lengths people will go to bypass digital boundaries are terrifying.
It really is. But hold on. Let me play devil's advocate here for a second for everyone listening. If it is just the two of them in a room, how does a judge even evaluate a bizarre tech claim like that without video evidence? Isn't that ultimately just his word against hers?
That is the fascinating thing about how these legal filings work.
Yeah.
When an applicant signs an affidavit for a restraining order, they're doing it under penalty of perjury. They're putting it on the official legal record, telling the court this highly specific, incredibly bizarre thing happened. If it is proven later to be a total fabrication, the legal consequences for lying to a judge are severe. So courts generally take these sworn, hyper-specific statements very seriously at the initial filing stage.
Which paints a really vivid picture of the absolute lack of trust simmering in that house. So let's look at the main event. June 3rd, 2026. It is 2 a.m. Tom alleges that he and Victoria returned to their shared home in the Hollywood Hills.
And this is where Victoria's father, Will Robinson, enters the narrative. Will has been living at the house, and Tom alleges that Will was visibly intoxicated when they arrived. The claim is that Will was slurring his words, sitting with a beer, and pouring himself shots of whiskey.
Right, and according to the documents, Tom and Victoria immediately get into an argument over her secretly recording him. This escalates quickly, and Tom alleges that Will grabs him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Feeling trapped, Tom says he pushed Will away, retreated deeper into the house, and basically barricaded himself inside a spare bedroom.
And the escalation does not stop at the bedroom door. Tom claims Will followed him, threatened to, quote, destroy him, and then physically punched a massive 12 by 12-inch hole right through the wood of the bedroom door.
A 12 by 12 hole.
Yes. Just picture being on the other side of that, sitting in a dark spare room, hearing someone scream threats through a jagged hole they just smashed in the door. I would be terrified.
It is a horrifying visual. But the allegations continue. Tom claims Victoria then entered the room and physically hit him in the temple.
Oh my God.
He stated the impact caused blurred vision, bleeding from his ear and neck, and lingering jaw pain that was so severe he eventually had to go to the emergency room just to rule out a bone fracture.
Which leads to the 911 call and the police arriving at 2 in the morning. Law enforcement takes one look at the situation, the physical marks, the hole in the door, and Victoria is arrested for suspected corporal injury to a spouse or cohabitant.
Yeah.
She's taken to jail in the middle of the night and later released on a $50,000 bail.
So legally, what happens the morning after an explosion like that? Tom files for an ex parte temporary restraining order, commonly known as a TRO. Now, ex parte is a Latin legal term that essentially means from one party. You can think of an ex parte TRO as a legal emergency brake.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah. Under California law, courts can grant this order on the exact same day it is filed, based solely on the applicant's sworn affidavit without ever notifying the other party.
It is wild to me that the court can make such a massive decision while only hearing half the story.
It seems extreme, yeah, but there is a crucial reason for it. The court looks at the paperwork and says, if this horrific story is true, this person is in immediate life-threatening danger. We need to hit the brakes right now and ask questions later.
Right, and if we look at the broader context of domestic violence, notifying an alleged abuser that a restraining order has been requested can actually trigger a massive spike in the risk of harm to the victim.
Absolutely.
So the law recognizes that extreme vulnerability and bypasses the notification requirement to ensure immediate physical safety.
Precisely. And this is where a concept called color of law comes into play. The California Guide specifies that the court can issue an immediate move-out order if the person requesting it has the right to possession of the property under color of law.
Which means what exactly for those of us not fluent in legalese?
To explain that simply, imagine being on a playground and two kids are fighting over a toy. The teacher just looks for the name written on the bottom of the toy to decide who gets to hold it right now. Color of law simply means having a legally recognized right to the space.
Oh, I see.
Because Tom's name is on the lease and he pays the rent, the judge used that fact to immediately order Victoria and Will to vacate the premises. The judge wasn't permanently deciding who was morally right. They were deciding who had the legal right to stand in that living room that night. Tom also legally requested that Will complete a 52-week batterer intervention program.
Wait, a 52-week program? That is a full year of rigorous, court-mandated accountability and psychological education. That is an intense, immediate legal consequence to ask for.
It is a massive legal stripe, but if you think this is an open and shut case of a barricaded victim, wait until you hear what came next. Because a leaked video from the backyard is about to completely flip this entire narrative upside down.
Oh man, this leaked footage genuinely changes the context of everything we just discussed. You hear the words lit fire pit, and it sounds like a dramatic exaggeration from a soap opera, right? But TMZ actually obtained the video footage of the altercation.
Yeah, let's break down exactly what that video shows. It captures the June 3rd fight, but out in the backyard. You clearly see Tom rushing aggressively toward Victoria, trying to grab a phone or recording device out of her hands.
And Will, seeing this aggressive move toward his daughter, intervenes. He steps in and grabs Tom around the waist, essentially putting him in a bear hug from behind to pull him away from Victoria.
Right. Then Tom physically overpowers Will. He violently shoves the older man backward. Will trips, loses his balance, and crashes backward into a lit fire pit before colliding into Victoria.
I mean, the physical injuries from this shove are horrific. Will comes forward and reveals that he suffered a ruptured disc in his back, a broken thumb, a broken elbow, and a cut heel.
That is so severe.
A ruptured disc is not a minor scrape. That is a life-altering spinal injury. And it raises a massive question for me. When you look at Tom's initial sworn statement, he paints a picture of retreating, hiding behind a locked bedroom door while a drunk man punches a hole in it.
Right, the barricade narrative.
Yeah. But this video shows Tom actively engaging, aggressively overpowering another man and shoving him into fire. Those two realities are incredibly hard to reconcile.
It completely shatters the timeline, and Will launches a legal counterstrike based on this. He claims that he was the one who called the police for their safety that night, not Tom. And on June 27th, Will files his own request for a restraining order against Tom, citing the broken bones and the fire pit video.
But here is what I find confusing, and maybe you can clear this up. Why was Tom's restraining order granted immediately on the same day? But when Will filed his request, with video evidence of a broken spine, the judge denied the emergency order and made him wait for a future court hearing.
That is a really great question, and it comes down to the deep complexity of what the courts call mutual restraining orders. Under California law, judges cannot just hand out mutual restraining orders like candy just because both sides claim abuse. The law actually requires a rigorous evaluation.
Why the extra hurdle, though? If both people are hurt, shouldn't both get immediate protection?
You would think so, but historically, granting mutual orders actually endangers victims. If a judge rubber stamps both requests, it dilutes the protection and allows the actual abuser to weaponize the legal system. The California guidelines specifically cite social science explaining this.
Wow, yeah.
Society, and sometimes the legal system itself, expects victims to act perfectly demure, crying, and totally blameless. But psychology tells us that real victims can be angry, they can yell, they can fight back in the heat of the moment.
That is such a vital point. The myth of the perfect victim is so pervasive. Just because someone fights back doesn't mean they aren't the victim of an ongoing pattern of abuse.
Exactly. So a judge has to cut through the noise and determine who the primary aggressor is. And note, the primary or dominant aggressor is not necessarily the first person to throw a punch. It is the most significant aggressor based on the history of domestic violence, threats, and fear of physical injury.
So when Will files his paperwork saying, "Look at my broken elbow, look at this video," the judge says, "I can't just stamp this today and grant a mutual order. I need to get everyone in a room at a properly noticed hearing to figure out the full context and identify the actual primary aggressor."
Right. Furthermore, the California Family Code explicitly states that acts of self-defense do not constitute abuse. If Tom's legal team successfully argues that rushing toward Victoria was an attempt to stop illegal secret recording,
Right.
and that shoving Will was a split-second self-defense reaction to being grabbed from behind, while it might not be legally classified as abuse, the judge simply needs more information than a silent video to make that call.
It is a massive, tangled legal knot. And honestly, if you are loving these Hollywood twists and legal deep dives, make sure you are subscribed because we've got even crazier stories ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Hit subscribe. Because later in this deep dives, we are going to unpack the highly emotional police-escorted standoff that happened next. And the shocking twist nobody saw coming regarding who was left behind in the house.
I am honestly still not over the fire pit video. It is just so visceral. But somehow, this story pivots from broken bones and a $50,000 bail to, of all things, cats.
It really does. Because of Tom's restraining order, Victoria and Will have been legally ordered out of the Hollywood Hills home. But on June 27th, they have to return to collect their personal belongings. And because the restraining order is active, they can't just walk through the front door.
Right.
They have to execute a move-out under the strict, armed supervision of law enforcement.
A police-escorted move-out is incredibly tense under normal circumstances. But this one was captured on video. The footage shows Victoria completely unloading on Tom.
Yeah, she was furious.
She is caught on camera screaming at him, "I think hate you, just like all your ex-girlfriends, nobody likes you."
Yeah.
It is raw, unfiltered, visceral anger echoing through a house while police officers just stand by watching.
But amidst the screaming and the packing of moving boxes, a completely different legal battle emerges. The battle for the pets.
This is where I got deeply emotionally invested. Will Robinson files legal documents explicitly demanding the return of his cat, whose name is Pumpkin. He is also demanding the return of Victoria's 3 cats, Keeks, Punk, and Yellow.
So a massive celebrity scandal grinds to a halt over a standoff involving 4 cats. Pumpkin, Keeks, Punk, and Yellow.
The sheer absurdity of it. You have allegations of coercive control, smashed doors, a lit fire pit, and emergency room visits, and it all funnels down into a custody dispute over Punk and the cat. It feels surreal.
It feels surreal for sure, but there is a very strict legal framework for this. Under the California Family Code, restraining orders have a specific protecting animals clause.
I think a lot of people don't realize that pets are specifically and explicitly covered in domestic violence law. They aren't just treated like a couch or a television.
They absolutely are recognized differently. The court can grant exclusive care, possession, or control of animals to the protected person. The stated purpose of this law is to prevent animals from being hidden, harmed, or, and this is the crucial part, used as leverage.
Which brings up such a fascinating psychological dynamic. In high conflict splits, when an emergency restraining order comes down, all legal avenues of communication are immediately severed. You cannot text, you cannot call, you cannot email. The silence is absolute.
Which is why I like to think of pets in these situations as emotional contraband. When you have a restraining order blocking everything else, pets often become the ultimate collateral damage.
Wow, emotional contraband.
Yeah, they are weaponized because they are the only shared emotional connection left that isn't easily divided. You can split a bank account. You can sell a piece of furniture. You can't cut Pumpkin the cat in half.
That is the perfect phrase for it. When the parties can no longer express their anger or exert their control directly at each other, the cats become the proxies for that control. Who gets to keep the cats is really about who gets to win the breakup.
And the judge now has to decide the fate of Pumpkin, Keeks, Punk, and Yellow, while simultaneously figuring out who shoved who into a fire and who is the primary aggressor.
It is an overwhelming amount of context for one judge to untangle. Stay tuned and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our follow-up when this finally goes to court.
Because all of this is leading up to a major legal showdown. The upcoming July 16th hearing is guaranteed to be explosive.
It really is. And there is one final, deeply provocative detail buried in the California Domestic Violence Restraining Order Guide that is going to dictate everything at that hearing.
What is the detail?
The mandatory background checks. Under California law, before a hearing involving mutual allegations of violence, courts are mandated to conduct specialized background checks on everyone involved. And the law requires them to specifically look for two red flags: past criminal convictions and registered firearms.
Okay, let's unpack why that is so vital here. Because in Tom's legal affidavit, he specifically alleged that Will has access to weapons. He explicitly put on the official record that Will has a club and a knife.
Yes. And on the flip side of that, Will claimed in his police report that during the June 3rd fight, Tom retreated into the house and started talking about having a gun.
So both sides are formally putting on the legal record that the other party has, or has threatened to use, deadly weapons.
Exactly. This isn't just about a scuffle or deleted Instagram stories anymore. The moment weapons are introduced into sworn legal narratives, the court's threat assessment skyrockets. Law enforcement and the judiciary get involved on a totally different level to verify if firearms are registered to either party.
So on July 16th, the judge has to sit down, review the background checks regarding these potential weapons, look at the medical reports detailing a broken elbow and a ruptured disc, evaluate the timeline of the barricaded door, and then hit play on that backyard fire pit video.
It is a massive web of conflicting claims, devastating injuries, and digital paranoia.
It really is. And I will leave you with this thought to mull over. When all the smoke clears and the judge finally views that horrific fire pit video alongside the sworn claims of hidden weapons and secret recordings, well, who will the law officially name the primary aggressor?
It is the ultimate question.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.